Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the afternoon sessions for the Miami Valley Cycling Summit, hosted here in I'm in Kettering. The first session this afternoon is with Matt Lindsay, and Matt's going to be giving us a regional Bikeways update. Matt Lindsay is MVRPC's Manager of Environmental Planning and the agency's point of contact for active transportation planning. He has been involved with the publication of the Miami Valley Bikeways map since its second edition in 2008 and has managed the Miami Valley Trails website since 2012. Goals for 2021 include riding the full length of the Ohio to Erie Trail, getting in the kind of shape that will make that possible. Matt, good luck. I know of several other people that are riding that route as well. Sounds like a lot of fun, but I'm not in that kind of shape to ride that. So Matt, we are going to do something different here this afternoon with Matt's presentation. Matt actually pre-recorded it. So Matt's going to do a little introduction, I guess, and then we'll watch the video and then we'll do a Q&A after the video is over. Matt, would you like to say anything before the video starts?
Just really brief. Thanks very much to the Cycling Summit and the committee for having me, and MVRPC and our involvement. I look forward to the video. Please, throughout the course of the video, put your questions in the Q&A portion of the Q&A and vote them up or down. Or I guess you can only vote them up. Vote them up if you find that to be someone else's question to be good, and we'll get to those earlier in the Q&A session. So we'll see you at the other side of the video.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you to the Miami Valley Cycling Summit Planning Committee for inviting MVRPC and me to come and present today about our regional bikeways and our regional bikeways plan. I'm going to start my presentation with a little bit of an introduction and an overview of what I'm going to talk about today. So the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission is a voluntary association of member governments. We can summarize our mission as saying we help member communities solve problems or address issues that extend beyond their individual boundaries. We've developed a lot of expertise in our 5 decades of work. We do a lot of work, most of our work in transportation planning, but we also do land use planning and environmental planning. We've dabbled in housing planning. We're doing disaster recovery planning for the communities that were affected by the tornadoes a couple years ago. So we wear a lot of hats. I am MVRPC's Manager of Environmental Planning. Now, you might wonder why someone with that title is speaking at a cycling summit. But as I mentioned, we do a lot of transportation work, and I have had the good fortune of being assigned the work of the biking and walking, the green forms of transportation. So I'm the main contact for biking and walking. I also manage the MiamiValleyTrails.org website, the day-to-day operations and maintenance of that. And I'll also admit that I'm a fair weather cyclist. If the weather is right and the timing is right, I'll get out on my bike to run errands or visit friends and family. I used to commute to work when I lived further away, but now I live only 3 blocks from work, so it's actually shorter just to walk. So, like our region's Bikeways plan, I have organized this presentation around past, present, and future. My goal for today is to give you a basic understanding of what's in our regional Bikeways plan and how we've been progressing and implementing it, but also get you a sense of what we see as the future of the Bikeways plan. Now, there is a presentation handout of sorts. It's a handout that only a planner could love. It's full of lists of projects and dates and project costs. It also has all the links to references within this presentation. If you're watching me today on May 7th, the day of the Cycling Summit, there should be links within the Remo platform to allow you to access the handout. It's a 6-page PDF. If you're watching this later, it should still live on the Miami Valley Cycling Summit website, cyclingsummit.com. So let's take a look at the Regional Bikeways Plan and what it contains. The region's current Bikeways Plan is what we call the Bike Plan Update. It was adopted in 2015. It's a 20-year plan of projects, programs, policies, and partnerships designed to increase transportation cycling across the region. It guides our infrastructure investments, but also partnerships and programs and policies from across the region. It is available to read in full on the MVRPC website, and this is the link here, and this link is also in the handout. The central approach of the plan, much like our region, is built around the Miami Valley Trails, our regional bikeways. We see those as the low-stress spines of our region's cycling infrastructure. These connect communities to one another, and they provide safe, comfortable, convenient, secure routes for people to enjoy for cycling. And to leverage our 5 decades of investment in the Miami Valley Trails, the Bike Plan Update encourages our member communities, communities around the region, to connect their downtowns, their neighborhoods, to the Miami Valley Trails through low-stress bicycle facilities. That way, folks on the trails can access your downtowns and the amenities and restaurants of your downtowns, and residents of our communities can access the trails straight from their homes. So we know from the surveys that we did in preparation of the 2015 Bike Plan Update, and also from surveys done in other parts of the country, that these low-stress routes are very important. We know that there's a segment of the population who are confident enough and comfortable enough on a bicycle to ride, sharing the lane with motorized traffic as a vehicle on our Ohio roads. And of course, that's legal under Ohio's vehicle codes. But they represent a small segment of the population. You can see on this pie chart that they're maybe 7 or maybe as many as 10% of the population. But we also know from our survey and others that there's a much larger segment of the population, they're shown here as interested and concerned, that are interested in riding their bicycles more, but they're concerned about safety. They are much more interested, and we learned this from our survey, much more interested on riding facilities that are separated from traffic. So like the Miami Valley Trails, but also even side paths along roads or protected bike lanes or two-way cycle tracks. You can see in the plan on our website a full breakdown of this survey, and you can see very clearly that this interested and concerned group of people are much more interested in riding on facilities that are separated from motor traffic. So to assist communities around the region in developing these low-stress communities, the Bike Plan Update completes a level of traffic stress analysis for the entire region, and it also offers to assist local communities in doing a level of traffic stress analysis for their individual community or for a portion of their community. We also offer assistance or support in passing local complete streets policies, setting up safe routes to schools programs, conducting walking audits or biking audits, and we also recommend the latest and most bike-centric design manuals from around the country, including those from NACTO and from AASHTO. Side by side with this goal of connecting communities to the Miami Valley Trails, the Bike Plan Update also has a central goal of completing the Miami Valley Trails network. That includes filling gaps, like the ones on the Great Miami Trail, the Wolf Creek Trail, and also the Stillwater River Trail, but also creating a new set of east-west rungs in the system. If you think of the Little Miami Scenic Trail and the Great Miami River Trail as the north-south spines of an 80-mile north-south ladder in our region, what we want is some of these east-west rungs that connect those two sides of the system. We have one now, the Creekside Trail and the Mad River Trail together connect Xenia to Dayton. But the plan envisions having several more, including the Great Little Trail, which would extend across southern Montgomery County, or connections between Piqua and Urbana to the north. The Miami to Miami connection across Butler and Warren County would be another such example, but it's outside of our planning region, so it's not included in our plan, but it would be another rung in the ladder. Pages 1 through 3 of your handout list all of the top priority projects that were identified in the Bike Plan Update. Now these, I'm not going to read these to you, but these pages are color-coded. So if you see anything that's listed in green or light green, that plan is partially funded or funded. And by partially funded, what we mean is that a portion of the plan has been fully funded. So imagine a 2-mile gap, and there's been a project put in place to do 1 mile of the 2-mile gap. That plan, that project is funded, but not the whole gap. If you see anything in blue or dark blue, that has been completed or partially completed. Now, I have some summary highlights of these tables. 7 of the 21 identified top projects have been completed or partially completed. And an additional 7 projects on that list are funded or funded partially over the next 5 years. So we've made progress on 14 of the 21 top projects in our first 6-7 years of the Bike Plan update. Now, side by side with these infrastructure goals, the plan also has these non-infrastructure efforts that complement the development of the infrastructure and make for a more conducive cycling environment for everyone. These are educational, promotional, enforcement, or planning efforts that make for a more conducive bicycling ecosystem. Page 3 of the handout also lists some of these efforts, and if you'll excuse me, I'll just read a couple of them. But what the top one was to promote use of the Miami Valley trails. So, as I mentioned before, we are maintaining the Miami Valley Trails.org website. We produce these maps that you see here on the slide, and we also facilitated the adoption of a common e-bike policy for all of the Miami Valley trails, so that e-bike users will have a consistent experience across all 350 connected miles of the trails. We also promote bike pooling through our Miami Valley Rideshare program. Bike pooling is like carpooling. It's people who are getting to college or to work together, but they're doing so on a bike. There's certain safety advantages of bicycling in groups, and there's also just more fun. So we promote bike pooling as one of these non-infrastructure efforts as well. We partner with Bike Miami Valley and bicycle clubs on educational efforts and bike lights giveaways. And we also do some planning work. We support a trail user survey that is conducted every 4 years across the region. We compile the trail counter data collected by trail managing agencies across the region into one report about trail usage. And we maintain a mapping database of all bicycle facilities, not just the trails, but bike lanes, signed bike routes, and side paths across the region, so that we keep track of the development of cycling infrastructure across the region. We're also regular supporters of Bike Month events and Bike to Work Day events, and of course the Miami Valley Cycling Summit, this event. So let's take a look now at what is committed today for future projects along the Miami Valley Trails, the region's bicycle regional routes. So we're looking at projects here that are currently funded and committed to in the next few years, in the next 5 years, and they come from a wide variety of sources. When you look at the table in the handout, you'll see a lot of them list the MVRPC TIP, TIP, as the funding source. TIP stands for Transportation Improvement Program, and that is the list that MVRPC puts out of the projects that are funded through the federally funded sources that MVRPC controls and allocates across the region. We use those for roadway projects and transit projects, but we also use them for bikeways projects. Our sister agencies in Springfield, the Clark County TCC, and in Cincinnati, OKI Council of Governments, have similar TIPs, and those projects that are related to the Miami Valley Trails that are in their TIPs are also listed in that table. There's also Clean Ohio Trails and the Recreational Trails Program. There's even a project from the state capital budget. And there is, in addition, a very unique project from the Economic Development Administration put together by the Miami Conservancy District to extend the Great Miami River Trail further north in Dayton along one of the banks of the Miami River. So these tables are pages 4 through 6 of your handout. And again, I'm not going to read them, but they are listed in the order of the expected year of construction. And I have summarized here on this slide sort of the headline that you get from all of this, because the tables kind of bury the lead, right? There are over $38 million worth of projects committed over the next 5 years to advancing some of the goals along the Miami Valley Trails in our region. So here's some highlights. Filling gaps, one of our goals of the bike plan. There are 5 such projects for over $9 million. New trail segments, extending a trail in one way or another, 12 projects, over $20 million. But also, almost really just as important as new segments, is our maintenance and replacement projects. As mentioned, some of the pieces of the trails were built 5 decades ago, and nothing lasts forever. And so it's important that this region is investing in making sure that the older sections of the trail maintain the good quality, safety, beauty of the newer sections of the trail so that they remain a viable and connected popular network of trails for our region. And so we have 8 maintenance or repaving projects totaling over $8 million. 3 of these projects are replacements of bridges along the Miami Valley trails. An important one is up in Piqua, where we're replacing a bridge that is not up to ADA standards with a new bridge that will be fully compliant with the ADA. So we have a tremendous investment in the future in our Miami Valley trails. So this map, it's kind of a simplistic map, but it shows you the spread of these trail-related projects over the next 5 years. There's about 45 miles worth of trail projects shown on this map. Some of them are just repaving, but some of them are new segments of trail. But I think the important thing to show here is that there is quite a geographic spread of the trails. You can see that there are projects in 7 different counties along our 350-mile network of regional trails. And there's 2 other sources of funding or investment in our bicycling network that I think are important to highlight. One is that we're marking the 10th anniversary of MVRPC's adoption of its regional complete streets policy. The complete streets policy requires that any jurisdiction that is applying to us for a transportation funding for a project, they have to at least consider adding bicycle and pedestrian facilities or including them as part of the project. And in many and most cases, those elements of the project, bicycle and pedestrian and transit access projects, are included in the project. So for 10 years, slowly and surely, the Complete Streets policy has been helping build cycling infrastructure across our region as part of roadway projects for the last 10 years. The other source of investment that I think is important to remember is the ongoing operations and maintenance of our Miami Valley trails, mostly done by our park districts. So this includes everything from clearing mud off the trails after a flood, to blowing acorns and leaves off the trails in the fall, mending fences, mending signs, clearing graffiti, emptying trash cans, the ranger patrols along the trail. This represents another ongoing commitment to the safety, security, and beauty of our Miami Valley trails across the region. So now, just a little bit about what we see as the future of the region's Bikeways plan. So the bike plan update was adopted in 2015, so we're in about year 7 of the plan now. Prior to 2015, it had been updated in 2008, so about every 7 years, MVRPC makes the decision that it's time to reopen the plan and update the plan so that we meet the region's needs for long-term planning for the Miami Valley trails and also our bicycling infrastructure. But we've also decided that we're going to expand the plan beyond its single focus on bicycling infrastructure to become a regional active transportation plan. So, what is an active transportation plan? We're going to expand the scope beyond biking to include walking and pedestrian infrastructure, but also transit access. Now, to be clear, we're not going to do transit route planning. We are going to do access planning to get to transit. So we're going to be looking at the bicycling and walking facilities that help people reach the transit routes. So the same way we use the Miami Valley trails as the central core or spine of the bike plan, we will be using the transit routes as also a destination or a core or a spine of our pedestrian infrastructure. Like any planning process, we'll be doing a comprehensive review of existing conditions, and then we'll list out project prioritization, policy, program, and partnership recommendations to make our entire active transportation infrastructure more viable and more useful across the region. We will want to make sure that our new active transportation plan aligns with the priorities and plans of our local jurisdictions. So we will be reaching out to villages and cities and counties and the park districts to make sure that our plan captures all of the priorities and plans of our member jurisdictions across the region. The Ohio Department of Transportation is about to finalize Walk Bike Ohio, which is the state's first statewide pedestrian and bike policy plan, and we will certainly want to align our regional active transportation plan with the goals and strategies of Walk Bike Ohio. not wanting to reinvent the wheel, we will also be incorporating the best practices and design guidance from organizations across the country, including cycling advocacy organizations and also the national organizations putting out bike-centric and pedestrian-centric design guidance. And we will also make sure that this planning process interfaces closely with MVRPC's new commitment to equity. The Regional Equity Initiative and also our age-friendly communities work are all housed within the Institute for Livable and Equitable Communities. And we will certainly communicate closely with those folks to make sure that our planning process does its level best to reach out and hear the voices of communities that have in the past not always had their voices amplified within our planning process and with our plans. The goal, of course, is to make sure we have a better plan and a better planning process. So we expect the planning work on the new Regional Active Transportation Plan to begin in July of 2021 when our new fiscal year starts. And we expect that the process will take about a year, give or take. And so we're looking very much forward to working with our communities and with advocates to make sure we have a great active transportation plan as an outcome of the planning process. So I know that that was a lot, and I know that it was quick, but I hope that you came away with two important takeaways. One is that MVRPC and the region has a plan for developing bicycling culture and bicycling infrastructure across our region, and that we are working diligently and steadily to implement that plan, and that we will improve the plan as we move forward. And also that we have a tremendous investment in our regional cycling infrastructure, and that as advocates, you should be proud of that, and you should, if you wish, contact your decision makers in your locality and thank them for their commitment to the Miami Valley Trails and to ask them to continue it. So I'm looking forward to your questions and comments in the Miami Valley Cycling Summit. If you're watching this not on May 7th, the day of the summit, you can always reach me at this contact information at MVRPC. Thank you again to the Miami Valley Cycling Summit Planning Committee for including MVRPC so that we could share with you our plan progress. And also thank you to the Miami Valley Communications Council, which made me look and sound so good today.
All right. I don't see Andy I just come back, but let's just jump into the Q&A directly. I have put my email address, my work email address, and my work phone in the chat so that you have my contact information for future reference. Let's go over to the Q&A and see what has risen to the top in terms of your interests. Let's see. So the first question I'm reading here at the top is, why has Far Hills Avenue been neglected with respect to multimodal transportation? It is scary to ride and needs some TLC to make it safe for all citizens to use, not just those in cars. Well, so my general answer is that Far Hills Avenue, it's a state route, but it's also an important thoroughfare in the city of Kettering. And I'm going to assume that the question primarily refers to the city of Kettering. Let me know if that's not correct. And so decisions on how roads how space within a road is allocated for different modes is an ongoing planning decision within our communities around the region. So this is a question that would be good to pose to the city of Kettering. MVRPC would certainly support any kind of transportation project that enhanced the completeness of Far Hills Avenue through Kettering. It's obviously a very important thoroughfare, lots of traffic. It's also a transit route. So the ways that citizens, advocates here at the Miami Valley Cycling Summit can influence that process are to stay involved and informed about what the city is doing, city of Kettering is doing in terms of planning along that road and in terms of the land uses beside it, and also how the street is used for transportation. Let's see. Oh, does it automatically remove? That's neat. Okay. The next one that rose to the top Are there any barriers to getting a multi-use trail to connect parks along I-675, Yankee and Grant Parks in Washington Township to South Down Reserve in Bath Township? Specifically to do a path that would be in the right-of-way of 675, that's obviously an ODOT controlled facility. If you're talking about allocating space maybe outside the sound wall but within their right-of-way, that would be, you know, a specific discussion to hold with ODOT on that. Let's see, the next one I see is, how do we get sound barriers along I-75 to reduce noise on the bike trails? So again, that is another question for ODOT. There are specific processes involved, as I understand it, and processes that I have not personally been involved with in terms of making decisions about where sound barriers go and where they do not. So in terms of 675, in Montgomery County, that would be a discussion with ODOT District 7. In Greene County, it would be ODOT District 8. But the presence or absence of sound barriers is a specific planning process or specific decision-making process, and to my knowledge, it is primarily a process managed by ODOT as the managers of those interstate highways. Some areas of the country use crushed stone for trails. Is that an option here, and what are the issues? So there is even a crushed stone trail around here, which is a portion of the Simon Kenton Trail. It has been chip sealed as well, but it was initially built from the city of Urbana north to Bell Fountain as a crushed stone trail. And I'm aware of them being in other places like the Katy Trail in Missouri. So is it an option around here? It's not an option we've chosen much because of the preferable nature of an asphalt trail in terms of its, well, it's ADA accessibility, it's longer lifespan, let's say. Of course, it does have a higher cost. So I don't see it necessarily as being an option that is not permitted around here, but it's certainly an option for these regional trails, the trails that span across counties and connect communities to one another. The typical choice in this region has been 10-foot wide, asphalt paved with a smooth surface. Those are better also for some of our other types of users, such as rollerbladers, which are also welcome on the trails, of course. They like a very smooth and consistent surface, and I don't think rollerblades work very well on crushed gravel. So while they remain an option, I think the asphalt option creates more opportunity for more users, and so that is typically, I think, why we have chosen to go that route in the Miami Valley. Let's see. Are there any new project updates due to COVID's influence on increased trail use? Any reprioritizations? I'm not aware of any. I'd be happy to have others in the chat or the Q&A to speak up if they know of any. There was some discussion about opening up certain streets to more non-motorized use in order to allow for more social distancing. I'm thinking about trails along the locations along the Great Miami Trail that are also next to roads, for instance. But there have been no, to my knowledge, specific changes to any project plans based on increased use from COVID. Not even anything like changing the timing of a particular project. Really excited to hear about the river-to-river rungs in Montgomery County. Targeted opening? Well, no. So the what we call the Great Little Trail extends from from the Great Miami Scenic Trail south of Miamisburg, north of Franklin, and it extends through the Medlar Reserve, which is a portion of trail managed by Five Rivers Metro Parks, Beautiful switchback trails in that area. If you haven't checked that out, please put that on your list of places to go sometime this season. Then it goes over towards the Austin Landing, along Austin Pike, and then into Washington Township and Centerville as it heads more towards the east. There are segments of that being added as developments crop up along Social Road Road in Washington Township and Centerville. However, there is no build-out plan year, and there's no certain route to take. Is this something that will veer down towards Corwin and Waynesville, or will it go more towards the Spring Valley area, or up through Bellbrook and down towards the village of Spring Valley? So it's unclear exactly how that rung gets completed, but it remains a priority within our plan to complete that east-west route. Let's see. Comment from Verb Washington. Having had a number of observations of motorists not looking right before crossing the Great Little Trail at I-75, is there any thought to signage on the ramps? So we're talking about that very same route, and where it crosses I-75 is on Austin Pike. And Mr. Washington is suggesting some safety upgrades where the trail crosses the on and off ramps from I-75. That's a very good suggestion. And I assume we could be talking about signage both for the cyclists and for the motorists, trail crossing, that kind of thing for the motorists. That's a very good suggestion. I will make sure that gets forwarded on to the folks at Miami Township and also perhaps at ODOT, and see if that can be further examined. Let's see, let me make sure I write that down. What's next? Austin ramps. That'll be good enough. This morning, we learned of equity issues around transportation plans. Can you highlight the aspects of the TIP that impact underserved populations, especially in West Dayton? Well, off the top of my head, that will be hard, but you can go onto the MVRPC website and choose under data, look for something called Web Tellus, T-E-L-U-S, Web Tellus. That is a database, a searchable database of all of our TIP projects. And you can search it either by keyword search, or you can look at a map, and you can pull up a map of the entire region, and there's a dot or a line on the map for every project that is in our TIP. And you can zoom in on any particular area of the region that you are interested in. So you could zoom in on Dayton and make a visual comparison of East to West Dayton, and looking at West Dayton compared to other parts of Western Montgomery County, if you wish. And that would be a way, I think, of visually getting a sense of the projects that we have on the west side of Dayton versus projects we have in other parts of Montgomery County. Then, I mean, you can highlight the projects that are of interest to you, and you can download either a spreadsheet or a PDF of the data, the specific information about that project, or all those projects, and you can begin to sort of total up the dollars invested and the types of projects, and begin to make an assessment for yourself of what you think, how we're doing in terms of equity with our MVRPC allocated projects. Let's see. The next question I have here is, will there be a steering committee or other advisory mechanism to guide the plan update process with MVRPC? Referring, I think, to our intention to update our Bikeways plan to a regional active transportation plan. And the answer is yes. And we will be inviting, of course, our partners at ODOT, but of course, also our jurisdictional partners, park districts, counties, cities, townships that want to participate, also advocacy groups. And we will also be specifically looking to partner with organizations that represent the communities that have in the past not been as well represented in our planning processes. So taking some of the thoughts that Charles T. Brown said this morning about reaching out to minority youth, reaching out to groups that represent religious minorities, women, so that we bring those voices into the process will be a priority for MVRPC. Someone put up the thank you, the link to the handout, which is on the Cycling Summit website. Will a new committee be formed to work on the active transportation plan in July, or we use an existing committee like the Bikeways committee? There'll be some, I suppose we will draw from the interested members of the Bikeways committee in terms of bringing in people to form sort of a steering committee for the active transportation planning process. We'll obviously need to broaden out from that because of our new focuses on pedestrian infrastructure and also infrastructure serving transit access. So we're going to need to broaden it beyond just the Bikeways committee. Let's see, a question regarding Piqua. What is involved, or who do you reach out to expand the path west of Piqua to connect to Bradford in Miami County and Greenville in Darke County? Same question as you go east or north to Sydney. So your best contact is the Miami County Park District. They have already put together a very good plan for the northern tier of townships across Miami County, stretching out in both directions from Piqua and north to the county line to connect up with the canal feeder trails, as they call them in Sydney, along the Great Miami River. So the Miami County Park District, the director of which is Scott Myers, and the assistant director or deputy director is Kevin Swanson. Those would be good people to reach out to. That's a good organization. They are certainly the lead agency typically for regional trail planning within Miami County, and I think that they've got some funded projects that are already in that handout, heading east from Piqua, and so you should reach out to them and find out more what's going on in terms of additional planning and projects around northern Miami County. So an update on the Wolf Creek Trail Gap or the Stillwater Trail Gap. So mixed bag there for both. There are updates to report. Some of them are listed in the handout. There is a project that is funded that will extend the Wolf Creek Trail past Wesleyan Metro Park up to a City of Dayton park called Hickorydale Park. That project is funded. I'm thinking 2025. It's in the handout. That will be an extension of the trail of a couple of miles. It will be mostly trail. There will be some segments that will need to be on streets because the streets get very close to the river or the Wolf Creek at some of those points. And there are discussions and planning processes going on to try and find how you get from Hickorydale to the current end of the trail in Trotwood. So that final piece of the gap from Hickorydale Park to let's say the train station in downtown Trotwood, that is not, there are no lines on the map yet. There's no project funded yet, but there's still planning work going on, engineering work and studies to try and find that best route. In terms of the Stillwater Trail Gap, Stillwater River Trail Gap, Five Rivers Metro Parks has been working very diligently into incorporating a proposed route to connect where it terminates at, well, used to be in Sinclair Park. It's now just outside of Sinclair Park since the tornado, and where it terminates up around just south of the Englewood Metro Park and the Englewood Dam. They are incorporating that into their trails, Five Rivers Metro Parks Trails Master Plan, which is in development at this point. Eric Sauer at Five Rivers is a good contact for that. And they have been slowly and diligently assembling parcels of land for conservation, but also with the ability to build trails through them for access purposes. and they are developing a potentially expensive but possible route to connect those two pieces of, and to connect those two segments of the Stillwater River Trail together. It involves a couple of bridges over the Stillwater River, unfortunately, which only because those are expensive. They can be quite pleasant and beautiful to ride over, but they can be very expensive and can also delay implementation because of the cost and the environmental reviews involved in crossing a river. But there is a plan in the works for closing that gap and creating what could eventually be a very nice loop going up the Stillwater and across through Vandalia in front of the airport and through Vandalia and then over to the Taylorsville Metro Park, connect to the Great Miami River Trail and come back down, create a nice little loop, another form of ladder, or a rung of a ladder between Stillwater and Great Miami Trail instead of Great Miami and Little Miami, but the same idea of an east-west route that is sometimes somewhat lacking in our region. Let's see, another question from Dan Boron. Given that the MVRPC OKI boundary cuts between major trail connections, existing and proposed, will there be outreach and coordination with OKI on the update? There absolutely should, Dan, you're right. And OKI is our sister agency to the south, and for the most part, they handle transportation planning for most of Warren County, but several jurisdictions in northern Warren County, Springboro being one, Franklin being another, Franklin Township being another, Carlisle, have joined MVRPC. So there's a tricky boundary there, and there's obviously an ongoing need for coordination when we do any kind of planning, including non-motorized transportation planning. Let's see. Another question. Having had multiple encounters with motorcycles, quad runners, and gasoline-powered bicycles on the trails in East Dayton, is there a plan to address the risk that these individuals pose to others? Well, that comes down to a matter of trail enforcement, right? The trails are managed in many places in Montgomery County by Five Rivers Metro Parks. In other places, it's by other entities, the cities, or by other park districts. And the difficulty is not being able to have a park ranger on every portion of the trail at all the times. But I think there are probably good ways for the public to interact or to help inform the park districts about times of day or days of the week or locations where motorized use of the trails, which is not allowed, tends to occur, and maybe find some ways to do some targeted outreach to those people who are using the trails improperly, and find them another outlet, or just to make it clear that the use of this trail is not permitted by law. Let's see. Excited to see the gap closed on the Great Miami River Trail, but it highlights the really bad crossing at the south end of Franklin. Any hope for a fix? I'm going to have to confess that I'm not sure which crossing that might be referring to. Specific trail improvements are always of interest to our member communities that manage different portions of the trail. If it's inside the city of Franklin, that might be a question for the city of Franklin. The railroad crossing. Okay. So that's probably very specifically something that's up to the city of Franklin. The other possibility could have been the Miami Conservancy District. So bringing particular crossings or other areas of safety or comfort concern to the attention of local communities is probably the most effective way to eventually facilitate some kind of improvement at a particular intersection or location along the trails, and also the trail managing agencies. So in that case, we're talking about the city of Franklin and the Miami Conservancy District. Have you talked about the closure on the Little Miami Trail in Warren County? I missed the beginning due to technical difficulties. I can. So no, that did not come up in the video. I think Ken is referring to a project in Warren County, Hamilton Township of Warren County, that will resurface or rehabilitate the bridge on US Route 22 above the trail. Actually, the bridge project won't actually necessitate closing the Little Miami Scenic Trail. However, the expected increase in road traffic being detoured off that bridge onto Old 3C Highway as well as other places, but particularly in this case, Old 3C Highway, has led to a decision to close the Little Miami Scenic Trail in early June during the span of the project. We are hopeful that, one, that the project will be speedy and efficient and allow the trail to reopen quickly. We are also hopeful that the Old 3C Highway is not the posted detour that is being posted as a result of the project up on the bridge that's over the trail. We are hopeful that most people will follow the posted detour, and that the change in traffic on Old 3C Highway will not be as dramatic an increase as is predicted, in which case some options may be able to be looked at to modify the closure during the course of the project. If it turns out that the increase in traffic on Old 3C is as anticipated, it could be that the Little Miami Scenic Trail will be closed there for a little over a month. Hopefully, again, weather will not be causing a problem to delay the project that's causing the closure in the first place, and that efficient work will get the project wrapped up and the trail restored to normal use as soon as possible. I very much appreciate your time and attention and watching the video and the discussion back and forth. Well, not so much back and forth, unfortunately, but the discussion that we had from your Q&A today. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day. And I hope I see you next week for the self-guided tour around Kettering on your bike. Thanks.